Miss Pamela, stop right there.
I work here. Who are you?
We have a warrant, ma'am. You need to come with us.
This is Pamela Latrice McNutt, the city clerk the entire town of Marks, Mississippi, trusted with its money. For nearly 4 years, she stole from it, and you're about to watch her career end.
For what? Nobody told me anything. What is happening right now?
Turn around and place your bag on the ground.
I have done nothing. Can someone...
She worked for the state of Mississippi for nearly a decade. Every water bill, every court fine, every business license payment, all of it passed through her hands. And for 3 years, 7 months, and 14 days, she had been taking it. By the time investigators walked into the city of Marks City Hall on the morning of January 25th, 2024, they had already traced a gap of $282,714 across 6 years of municipal records. Pamela Latrice McNutt, the city clerk, the keeper of every account, the woman the town trusted to protect what little it had been quietly draining it since November of 2017. She would plead guilty to 1 count of embezzlement by a public official. She would forfeit her $50,000 surety bond. She would be ordered to pay $98,428 in restitution. And on March 2nd, 2026, 11th Circuit Court Judge Linda Coleman would sentence her to 12 years in the custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections. This is how it happened. Before we go any further, how much do you really trust the person who handles your town's money? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're not subscribed, fix that now. Pamela Latrice McNutt was born in 1980 in Marks, Mississippi, the county seat of Quitman County, a flat strip of the Mississippi Delta where the cotton fields ran to the horizon and the town itself barely covered 1 square mile. Her mother, Darlene, worked the records window at the Quitman County Courthouse on Chestnut Street. Her father, Curtis, ran a small engine repair shop out of a cinder block building on the edge of Lambert, 15 minutes down Route 3. They were not wealthy. Nobody in Marks was wealthy. The median household income in Quitman County sat around $20,000, one of the lowest in a state that was already the poorest in the nation. But Darlene McNutt had something that carried weight in a small town. She had access. She knew which families owned what parcels, who had liens, who had judgments, who owed the county, and who the county owed. She stamped documents. She filed records. She knew that in a community this size, the person behind the government counter held more quiet power than most people understood. Pamela watched her mother work that window for years. She saw the way people came in nervous and left calmer, the way a single stamped receipt meant a problem was solved or a debt was cleared. She understood early that paper was power in a small town, that whoever controlled the records controlled the conversation. She graduated Quitman County High School in 1998 and enrolled in the Business Administration program at Coahoma Community College in Clarksdale, 40 minutes north on Highway 61. She took 14 credit hours a semester and worked evenings at a fast food counter on State Street to cover gas and books. When she finished her associate's degree in 2001, she came back to Marks. Not because there was nothing else, but because Marks was where she knew how things worked. She took a job as a teller at First Security Bank on the Marks Square, $8.75 an hour. She sat behind a partition of bulletproof glass and processed deposits, cashed checks, counted drawer balances at close. She was meticulous. Her drawer never came up short. After 3 years, her branch manager, a soft-spoken man named Gerald Pettigrew, wrote in her annual review that she was one of the most detail-oriented tellers on staff, and that she consistently demonstrated the kind of accuracy and discretion the position demands. She did not stay in banking. In 2005, the city of Marks posted an opening for a deputy clerk, an entry-level municipal position handling intake paperwork, utility accounts, and counterpayments. The starting salary was $26,000. Pamela applied and was hired within a week. The city clerk at the time, a woman who had held the position for 19 years, told the Board of Aldermen at the hiring meeting that Pamela came with Exactly the kind of background we need. She knows numbers, she knows this community, and she knows how a government office runs. She spent the next decade as deputy clerk, learning every billing cycle, every court fine collection schedule, every privileged license renewal the city ran. She trained every part-time bookkeeper who cycled through. When the longtime city clerk retired in 2015, the Board of Aldermen voted unanimously to promote her. Her evaluation that year read, "Reliable, meticulous with the books, knows every family on every water bill." The mayor called her the institutional memory of this office. Her salary went to $41,000. She was given keys to every cabinet, access to every account, and signature authority over every municipal receipt. She was, by every measure the city of Marks had, exactly the person they needed in that chair. The city of Marks is the county seat of Quitman County, population around 1,400 at the time Pamela McNutt took the clerk's chair. 1 square mile of incorporated land. A city hall at 340 Pecan Street that handled everything: utility billing, code enforcement, municipal court collections, business licensing, with a staff that, on its fullest day, numbered fewer than 10 people. The revenue the city collected fell into 3 main buckets. First were water and sewer payments, roughly 700 residential and commercial accounts billed monthly. Most ran between $30 and $80. A significant portion of those payments came in over the counter in cash. Marks was the kind of community where a meaningful share of residents did not use checking accounts, did not pay online, and did not trust the mail. They walked into City Hall on Pecan Street, handed over an envelope of bills, and walked out with a handwritten receipt. Second were municipal court fines, traffic violations, code citations, ordinance infractions adjudicated in the Marks Municipal Court. Defendants paid their fines at the clerk's window, again, frequently in cash. Third were privileged license fees, a Mississippi state-mandated annual payment required of certain business types operating within city limits. A small town fee, but a real one. Restaurants, repair shops, small retailers, each paid their annual assessment at the clerk's counter. The weakness in all of this was simple. It was the same weakness that plagues small municipal offices across the rural South. A single point of control, and no mechanism to verify it. Pamela McNutt was the only person who processed the counterpayments, entered them into the city's billing system, prepared the daily cash reconciliation, and made the bank deposit. There was no cosigner requirement. There was no second employee who pulled the receipt book at close and matched it against the ledger. The city's financial software was outdated, a legacy system that had not been upgraded in years, and that logged entries only as they were manually keyed in by the person sitting at the clerk's terminal. Every payment that walked through the door at 340 Pecan Street was processed, or not processed, entirely at Pamela McNutt's discretion. The city's annual audit was a scheduled exercise, not a surprise one. Auditors reviewed what the ledger showed. Nobody verified whether what the ledger showed matched what had actually come in the door. Nobody except Pamela knew that answer. The first time Pamela McNutt pocketed city money, investigators would later determine it was November 2017. A Tuesday morning, a woman named Celestine Odom, 63 years old, retired, living alone on Magnolia Street on a fixed income, walked into City Hall and paid her water bill, $61.40, in cash. Pamela wrote her a receipt. Celestine folded it into her purse and walked back out into the pale November light. The $61.40 never made it into the city's account. The method was not complicated, because it did not need to be. Pamela wrote the receipt by hand. The city still ran a duplicate copy receipt book for cash transactions, and tore the carbon out of the book before entering anything into the system. She kept the top copy to hand to the customer. She destroyed the carbon, and she made no ledger entry. As far as the city's records were concerned, Celestine Odom had not paid. As far as Celestine Odom was concerned, she had a receipt that said otherwise. She did not take from every payment. In the beginning, she was selective. A cash payment here, a court fine there. Small amounts, $30, $40, $60 at a time. The kind of gap that looked like a rounding error in a small city ledger. Checks she processed cleanly. Money orders she processed cleanly. It was only cash, untraceable, handwritten, deposited by her alone, that disappeared. By 2018, the pattern had settled into something deliberate. She was skimming across all three revenue streams: water bills, court fines, privileged license fees. A $200 traffic fine paid by a young man cited for speeding on Highway 322, gone. A $340 annual license fee from a small automotive shop on Main Street, gone. A sequence of water payments from a block of elderly residents who paid every month in cash, like clockwork, systematically not recorded, the money pocketed, the receipts given to customers who had no reason to suspect a thing. By 2019, the amounts had grown. A $600 privileged license payment, pocketed outright. A month's worth of municipal court collection, close to $1,200, largely gone. She had learned the rhythms of the audit cycle. She knew when the state auditor's scheduled review fell on the calendar. She adjusted accordingly, processing some payments legitimately in the weeks before a review, returning to the pattern after. Nobody noticed. Nobody was positioned to notice. By the time the scheme entered 2020, something had shifted. Residents began receiving shut-off notices for utility accounts they believed were current. Not a flood of them. The city was too small for that to go unnoticed all at once, but a trickle. An elderly woman on Magnolia Street who had paid every month for 11 years, opening an envelope to find a delinquency notice. A retired school teacher on Chestnut Avenue whose water was cut off on a Thursday morning. A disabled veteran on Quincy Street who called City Hall to dispute a notice and was told the record showed no payment on file. They had receipts. Most of them did, because Pamela had given them receipts. That was the mechanism. Give the customer their proof, destroy the city's proof, enter nothing. The customer believed they were paid. The ledger said they were not. And in the gap between those two realities, the money had already moved. Her name was Edna Breckenridge, 71 years old, retired elementary school cafeteria worker, born in Marks, lived in Marks her entire life, owned a small white wood frame house on Magnolia Street that her late husband had paid off in 2009. She lived on a Social Security check and a small pension from the Quitman County School District. Every month on the 7th, she walked to City Hall and paid her water bill in cash, anywhere from $40 to $60, depending on the season. She had been doing it that way for 31 years. In March of 2021, Edna Breckenridge received a shutoff notice from the city of Marks. The notice stated that her account was delinquent in the amount of $218, the equivalent of 4 missed months of payments. She had not missed a single month. She went to her kitchen drawer and pulled out 31 months of handwritten receipts, rubber-banded in chronological order. She found the 4 receipts in question, walked to City Hall, placed them on the counter in front of Pamela McNutt, and asked her, calmly, to explain the discrepancy. The conversation that followed was managed. Pamela told Edna the receipts would need to be verified against the system. She asked her to leave copies and said she would follow up. Edna left the originals. She had learned enough from 30 years in a school cafeteria to recognize when she was being handled, and walked directly to the office of Mayor Calvin Dupree on the other side of the building. Mayor Dupree pulled the ledger. Edna's account showed 4 months of non-payment. The receipts she held showed the opposite. He asked to see the cash reconciliation records for the months in question. They showed deposits that did not match what the receipt book should have produced. He asked Pamela for an explanation. Pamela told him there had likely been a data entry error. She would sort it out. She did not sort it out. She submitted her resignation the following week, citing personal family matters, effective April 30th, 2021. Mayor Dupre referred the discrepancy to the Mississippi office of the state auditor. The audit did not stop because the clerk had left. If anything, it accelerated. State auditor investigators did not begin with Edna Breckenridge's 4 receipts. They began with every receipt they could find. Over the following weeks, auditors from the Mississippi office of the state auditor fanned out across Marks. They knocked on doors. They sat at kitchen tables. They asked a simple question: "Do you have your City Hall receipts?" An astonishing number of residents did. Small-town people who kept their paperwork in shoeboxes and kitchen drawers, in manila envelopes tucked into junk drawers, in the back pockets of old purses they had not thrown away. 31 months of Edna Breckenridge's receipts. A retired pastor on Commerce Street who had saved every water bill receipt since 2015. A young couple on Anderson Avenue who had kept their court fine receipts because they had planned to dispute the original citation and never gotten around to it. The receipts did not match the ledger, not by a little, by a pattern, a systematic, consistent, expanding pattern that stretched back to November of 2017. The investigators built a spreadsheet. On one side, every cash payment that could be corroborated by a resident receipt. On the other, every corresponding ledger entry in the city's billing system. The gaps populated column after column. Water payments with no corresponding deposit. Court fines collected but never logged. Privileged license fees received and never recorded. By the time the spreadsheet was complete, investigators had documented a discrepancy of $282,714.58 across the full period of McNutt's tenure as city clerk. They cross-referenced her personal bank account deposits against the identified gaps. The correlation was not perfect. Some cash was untraceable once spent. But the timing of large deposits into her personal accounts aligned consistently with periods of elevated cash shortfall at City Hall. Investigators also recovered text messages from a phone number associated with Pamela McNutt, dating to February 2020. A family member had asked her about a large cash transfer. The messages, recovered during the investigation, read as follows. Pamela, February 14th, 2020. Don't worry about it, I'll handle it this month. Family member. Pam, that's too much, where is that coming from? LOL. Pamela. Don't ask me that. Family member. Okay, I'm not asking. Pamela, February 14th, 2020. Good. A former part-time bookkeeper who had worked in the clerk's office between 2018 and 2019, a woman named Rosetta Haynes, gave a recorded statement to investigators. She told them that Pamela had, on multiple occasions, insisted on handling counter cash alone on busy days, telling Haynes to work on filing or the back computer terminal instead. She said at the time she thought nothing of it. Pamela was the city clerk. It was her counter. But she remembered it now. The demand letter was prepared in January 2024. $282,714.58. Pamela McNutt had a $50,000 surety bond covering her municipal employment, a standard protection the city carried precisely against this kind of loss. The bond was a fraction of what she owed. On the morning of January 25th, 2024, Mississippi State Auditor Special Agents arrived at the city of Marks at 10:09 in the morning. They parked in the gravel lot behind City Hall at 340 Pecan Street. Pamela McNutt had not worked for the city in nearly 3 years. After her resignation in April of 2021, she had taken a bookkeeping position at a small landscaping company operating out of a converted house on Commerce Street. She had been there for 2.5 years. The arrest warrant, signed the previous week, named her by full legal name and cited 1 count of embezzlement by a public official under Mississippi Code. She arrived near the parking lot in front of her former employer's office at 10:09, canvas tote over one shoulder, keys in hand, phone in the other. She was mid-stride when an agent called her name. Agent, O.S. Pamela McNutt, State Auditor's Office, We need you to stop. Pamela. Stop. I'm going into my building. Who are you? Agent. OS. Ma'am, we have a warrant for your arrest. Pamela. A warrant? For what? You need to go through the appropriate channels. I haven't worked for the city in 3 years. Agent. OS. Embezzlement by a public official. Turn around and place your hands behind your back. Pamela. Voice rising, pointing at the building. I will not turn around in this parking lot. Call whoever you need to call. I kept every record in that office, every single one. You cannot come to my place of employment and... Agent. OS. Pamela, now. She stopped talking. Her tote bag dropped from her shoulder to the gravel. She turned around. The handcuffs clicked into place at 10:11 on a pale January morning in Marks, Mississippi, with the bare crepe myrtle trees lining the lot edge and the flat delta sky overhead, and nobody on Pecan Street who knew yet what had just happened. Her final words, spoken quietly before she was guided toward the transport vehicle, were, "I want a lawyer." She had been sitting at that counter for nearly a decade. She had known every account, every family, every payment cycle in a city of 1,400 people. She had taken from all of them. Stories like this don't make national headlines. A small-town clerk in one of the poorest counties in Mississippi. The media looks the other way. If you want to see more accountability coverage, subscribe and hit the notification bell. This channel doesn't let these cases get buried. Pamela Latrice McNutt was transported to the Quitman County Jail following her arrest on January 25, 2024. The Mississippi Office of the State Auditor issued a formal demand letter at the time of her arrest in the amount of $282,714.58, the full assessed loss, including investigative costs and administrative fees on top of the identified theft. Her $50,000 employment surety bond was immediately triggered. She was charged with 1 count of embezzlement by a public official. The case was prosecuted by the Mississippi Attorney General's Office under Attorney General Lynn Fitch, which had assumed jurisdiction following the state auditor's referral. Under Mississippi statute, the charge carried a potential maximum sentence of 20 years in custody and $5,000 in fines. Her defense attorney, a Jackson-based criminal defense lawyer named Marcus Dubois, filed motions to suppress portions of the financial records on procedural grounds. Judge Linda Coleman denied the core suppression motions. The financial records, the resident receipts, and the bank deposit comparisons were all admitted. Pamela McNutt entered a guilty plea in the fall of 2025. On March 2, 2026, she appeared for sentencing before Judge Linda Coleman in the 11th Circuit Court. The courtroom was not large, it was not loud, but it was not empty. Edna Breckenridge, 74 years old by then, moving more slowly, but there, read a statement from a folded piece of notebook paper. She did not speak about dollars and cents. She spoke about the shutoff notice. She spoke about standing in City Hall with 31 months of receipts and being told to leave copies and wait. She spoke about what it feels like to be told by the institution of your own hometown that you didn't pay. When you did pay, and you have the proof, and the person who took your money is the same person now telling you you're wrong. I didn't know what to do, Edna told the court. I'm 71 years old, and I've lived here my whole life, and I just wanted my water to stay on. Judge Linda Coleman addressed Pamela McNutt directly before imposing sentence. The city of Marks is not a wealthy place. It has never been a wealthy place. The residents who walked into that office and paid their water bills in cash were not paying with money they had left over. They were paying with money they needed. And the person those residents trusted most to protect what little the city collected was the same person who stood at that counter and took it from them for 3 years and 7 months. There is no explanation for that conduct. There is only consequence. Judge Coleman sentenced Pamela Latrice McNutt to serve 12 years in the custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections, 3 years on the intensive supervision program, the remaining 9 suspended, followed by 5 years of supervised probation and 4 years of unsupervised probation. She was ordered to pay $98,428.68 in restitution to the city of Marks. Her $50,000 surety bond was forfeited. She was assessed a $1,000 fine and a $500 payment to the Mississippi Crime Victim Compensation Fund. Attorney General Lynn Fitch issued a statement the following morning. Her words were brief. This abuse was hurtful, and it affected hardworking Mississippians. Edna Breckenridge's water account was corrected. Her record shows continuous payment from 1990 to the present. It always did. That case was quiet. Small town paper, small headline, small county nobody outside Mississippi has heard of. The case on your screen right now, loud enough that the whole country should have been paying attention. Click it.